Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome to another Kemp Technologies Bright Talk webinar. And today we have a great topic. I always love our topics. Well, I love the stuff that I do and the things that we talk about. This one is 5 reasons why you should buy Kemp Flowmon and not Cisco Stealthwatch. And this is going to be an interesting kind of competitive discussion about the pros and cons of the technologies. And just by the way, Stealthwatch, I'm actually using the wrong term. And Philip, our expert here, who has come to give us all this great information, will be telling
Hello.
us. Yes, welcome, Philip. And it's now called Cisco Secure Network Analytics, and I can never remember that name. I always refer to it as Stealthwatch. I remember it being Stealthwatch back at Landcope when before Cisco
Yeah,
acquired them, right?
yes,
So
exactly. It's built
it's
into your memory.
yeah, I'm showing my age, but it's gonna be a great conversation. And Philip has a lot of awesome content. There's more content that we can fit in this webinar, but so I'm going to pass on to him real quick. But first, a couple of housekeeping things. Again, this Bright Talk webinar is available. We're live right now, and it'll be available on demand. If you have any questions, we will be answering questions at the end of the session. Just go to the Q&A box, enter your question, and we'll be more than happy to answer them at the end of the session. And anything else that you need, please come back to us and refer to us. And by the way, don't forget to find Kemp Technologies, the Kemp on LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, and all our social media channels, because we have lots of cool content, not just copies of these on-demand webinars. So Philip, I know we have talked many times in the past. We have done webinars in the past, so I'm going to do a little less of the introduction and everything. But you're an awesome guy, and you have lots of great information. I'm going to pass this on to you and let you tell us this great stuff about, Cisco Stealthwatch, Kemp Flowmon. What's the difference and why does it matter?
Super. Excellent. Thanks, Frank. Thank you for the great introduction. So let's dive right in. I'm just gonna bring up the slides. So just let me please know if you can see it. And let's look at the 5 reasons why Kemp Flowmon is better security solution than a Cisco Stealthwatch or the Secure Network Analytics. So before we jump right in, let's first look what is the network detection and response. So I've brought up a little definition, but basically it's a growing field of cybersecurity that enables organizations to monitor network traffic for any malicious or suspicious actors or behavior, and you're giving you the capability to respond and detect to any threats that might occur in your network. So I always like to, when I talk about network detection and response, I always like to mention these slides, because what we see in the market from our when we talk to the customers, we still notice that majority of the security budget is spent on the blocking and prevention. So primarily for firewall solution, but even every report I tend to read always suggest and always say the same thing, that detection and response are more important than blocking and prevention. So it is really one of the key pillars that you would want to have in your multi-layered security approach. So with that comes the security visibility triad. I'm sure that many of you have seen this slide in one form or another. So let's just quickly or briefly look at these 3 key pillars. So the first pillar is CM, Security Information and Event Management, and User and Entity Behavior Analytics. So there are actually some statistics that say over 80% of successful hacks are actually related to compromised credentials. This is a big part of the exploit world. So having a deep understanding of what normal behavior looks like versus what abnormal behavior looks like is really important. For example, if someone tries to log in 200 times in less than a second, that's probably not a user and you want to do something about it, maybe cut that device off the network. On the other hand, if you have a large user environment, you need some way to collect all those logs, aggregate them, and analyze them. So imagine dealing with it manually, every email alert going through thousands of logs. that just doesn't scale with the networks that we're dealing with. So that's why both user behavior analysis and as well as a way to aggregate the logs are really the key. The second pillar is the EDR, endpoint detection and response. So you are probably aware that once an asset or a set of assets is compromised, it presents a huge problem, because from that point, the attacker is one step closer to now getting privileged access, which can be a real disaster. So having a real-time endpoint protection response is another key pillar. And the third pillar, and this is what we're going to spend most of our time here, is the network detection and response. And this is where Kemp comes in with the Flowmon product line. So some of you may remember not so long ago that it was actually called the NTA, Network Traffic Analysis, but later it was changed to NDR, which is what remains still today. And network detection and response is really about identifying intrusions across the network, giving you a way to triage them, narrow down to what really matters, so you can filter out some of the noise. So incident responders and SOC operators can get to the stuff that really matters, effectively helping you to get ahead of things, getting to their actual impact state. You may not be able to catch the exploit right at the beginning, but you want to catch the footprints before the full impact of the exploit comes up. So, for example, in movies, hackers hacking into the mainframe, and you can see the good guy is kind of playing back and forth with the bad guys. But we know that in reality, that's not how it really works. It's about those small wins that ultimately lead you up to the successful attack. So this is the security visibility triad. I think I explained what kind of space we're going to be talking about here. So let's now dive into the Stealthwatch solution and understand a little bit about it. So as we've discussed with Frank in the beginning, Stealthwatch or the product Stealthwatch was originally developed by a company called Lencope in 2000. But then 5 years later, it was acquired by Cisco, and then changing the name from Lencope Stealthwatch to Cisco Stealthwatch. And now another 6 years later, we are under a new name, which is now the Cisco Secure Network Analytics, or Cisco SNA. So the whole solution is solely oriented for security use cases. It's a very good solution recognized by Gartner for network detection and response capabilities. And it's possible to deploy it either as an on-premise solution, as a software as a service, or on a cloud or in hybrid networks. So if we look at the components, how Stealthwatch works. So the flow collector and the Stealthwatch management console are the key components of every Cisco Stealthwatch deployment. So the management console, shortly the SMC, is the brain of the system. It creates security events, alerts according to the type of threats, and gives the means to dig into the data. The next is the flow collector. So that is the device which is responsible for collection and aggregation and storage of all incoming telemetry from network devices such as firewalls, switches, endpoints, and others. Another component is the flow sensor, which we can see on the right side. This can be an optional component, but can be very useful as well. This uses a copy of the traffic acquired by a span port or just by tapped devices, and then sends the enhanced NetFlow data to the collector, and it provides additional application layer data as well. The threat intelligence components, this is a platform from Cisco Talos, which supplies the management consoles with the up-to-date threat feeds and replication data. This is above the UDP director that I just highlighted with the red square. So the UDP broker, or the UDP director, as it's sometimes called, is another optional component, which is used when you want to send the NetFlow data, syslog or SNMP data to multiple destinations, such as flow collector, or to existing CM solutions, such as Splunk. So that is the architecture. We can see that there is many different components. So even from the first look, it looks a little bit complicated, but we'll get into it a little bit more. So I'll just jump into the 5 reasons why the Kemp Flowmon is better for security than Cisco Stealthwatch, and we'll be learning a little bit more about the solution. So reason number 1, only NDR. What do we mean by that? Only detection and response capabilities is what Cisco Stealthwatch is primarily focuses on. It leverages a NetFlow technology, which is it can provide a really meaningful insight. So just the fact that Cisco primarily uses those data only for security use cases, that can be good, but it doesn't leverages the full potential that the NetFlow IP fixed data or the network telemetry data can provide you. So a couple of years ago, Gartner was releasing every year the Magic Quadrant report for network performance monitoring and diagnostics, until it was discontinued in 2020. And in the year 2020, they stopped making the Magic Quadrants report, and instead they split it into 2 different reports. That's called the market guides now. So market guide for network telemetry, so for network detection and response, and market guide for network performance monitoring and diagnostics. So although both Cisco Stealthwatch solution and Kemp's Flowmon solution were regularly named in the Magic Quadrant report since, I don't know, 2016, 17, 18, and so on, after Gartner split the report into 2 parts for network detection and response and network performance monitoring and diagnostics, only Flowmon solution is continuously being recognized as a market leader in both of these reports. Stealthwatch Cisco is only mentioned in the network detection and response report from now on. So yes, go ahead, Frank.
I was going to say, this is really interesting because I know a little bit about flow technologies, NetFlow. We talked about NetFlow and other types, JFlow, SFlow, IP fix. And so these technologies, excuse me, are using these solutions are using these technologies. And the technologies are great because it can provide this wealth of data. And here in this case, Stealthwatch is using the data only for the security, which is important, the security response, the security detection, this network detection or response capability. When in reality, there's so much more information like the NPMD, the network performance monitoring and diagnostics, for example, and application performance monitoring, network performance monitoring. There's so much more you can do with it. It just seems to me almost obvious that you would want to take advantage of the technology to give us this other information.
Exactly.
Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. And we've seen it when we talk to our customers, mainly in the network operations side, that they really like the technology and the capability, being able to drill down to the root cause when they are troubleshooting and trying to find what's actually causing delays or some disruption in the network. This can be a really key value. So that's something that I think is really great that Kemp Flowmon solution can provide that both in one unified platform.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yes. So let's have a look at reason number 2. So limited flow data storage. The way Stealthwatch is designed, it can only support up to 6 terabytes of storage. And that goes with what we talked about so far, that Cisco Stealthwatch is primarily focused on the security use cases, which is when there is some security problem, you want to deal with it right away. So you're probably not that much interested for some long-term historical data. But when we talk to our customer, we can see that this can be actually a big advantage as well, being able to go down in history, to learn from the mistakes that happened, or sometimes there can be some lawsuit or lawyers involved, and they might ask you to for some data 6 months back, and having that capability to go into the data storage and find the data that you need is it's really the key. So given the fact that Cisco Stealthwatch collector only stores the aggregated data on top of that. So again, the difference that Flowmon is capable of storing the full data without aggregation is another key benefit when you want to go down in history for whatever reason and have all the data that you need. As you can see also, the maximum capacity, 6 terabyte for the Stealthwatch collector, is split into 3 servers, and 2 of them just for the storage and 1 for the computing power. At Kemp Flowmon, we have a pretty scalable solution, I like to say, going from 1 terabyte Flowmon collector all the way up to 192 terabytes. And if we would want to just count the one server, with the 1 server unit, we can go up to the 24 terabytes of storage data, which is 4 times more than Cisco's collectors.
Yeah, and that's awesome because I remember some scenarios with some customers back in the days where they had problems with the not having long-term storage, or for whatever reason they didn't have long-term storage, not because these systems work by trying to find anomalies. And an anomaly means something out of the ordinary. It means you need to know what is ordinary, right? You need to
Yes.
have that baseline. And the problem here is that these companies were running reports or doing things that were very infrequent. For example, quarterly earnings reports or annual financial things, or HR doing on things 1 time a year or 2 times a year. So they do it a long time ago, and then it shows up as an anomaly because it's wiped from the data. So every single time they do this, it gets alerted, and they have to go through this entire process to say, this is not an alert, this is a real thing. And it can cause a lot of problems if you don't have that proper retention and ability to look that far back into the data.
Yes, exactly. You just nicely showed the whole value of the differentiation and having the capability of the big enough storage when you need to, and if you need to scale up as your big network grows, having that option. So yes, exactly as you said. So let's look at the reason number 3. So that's the complexity. I've already talked a little bit about the Cisco architecture. So let's look at the basic deployment of Cisco Stealthwatch versus Kemp Flowmon solution to see how many components do you need and how complicated the deployment actually can be. So let's say we want to provide a full network analysis and leverage every component that we have at our disposal. For Cisco Stealthwatch, you will need at least 4 different licenses just to get you started. First, you will need a flow sensor to be connected to span port and get NetFlow data to be sent to the flow collector. You might need another component, the UDP directors, which is able to leverage your current infrastructure and send the IP fix or net flows from in various formats from your routers, switches, or firewalls to the collector as well, maybe from different locations. So that is another license. Then of course, you would need the Flowmon collector itself to store the aggregated data. So that's another component with another license. And then the storage itself is useless if you don't have a way to access it. So the 4th and final license is the management console. So 4 different components, 4 different licenses. Let's see how it will look if you deploy the Kemp Flowmon solution. So the answer is pretty straight and simple, only one. You only need one appliance that is capable of delivering the threat detection capabilities. You see, when you deploy the Flowmon collector, it already has everything built in, just the way it's designed. So Flowmon collector, the virtual license, actually has two 1 gig monitoring ports. So for basic deployment, there is no need to install additional sensors. Of course, we can if you need to, but for the basic deployment, there is no need. We have the built-in monitoring ports built into the Flowmon collector. The collector is also capable to receive network telemetry, so NetFlow, IPFix, JFlow, SFlow from multiple sources. It's a built-in capability of Flowmon collector, and you don't need an extra license for that. The Flowmon collector is one appliance with one software module, the Flowmon anomaly detection system that runs on the collector and provides you with the actionable intelligence to secure your network. And the web interface gives you the opportunity to switch between security operation view, which gives you the insight into the different number of anomalies that you detect, and the network operations view, giving you the visibility into the top talkers and giving you the deep down, drill down analytic capabilities. So that's, I think, the simplicity speaks for itself. 1 versus 4. That's another reason. So reason number 4, the single vendor lock-in. What we mean in this case is the independency on a single vendor. Cisco, being one of the biggest player in the networking market, can easily apply the single vendor lock-in approach. Stealthwatch will work well in a Cisco-based environments, as various features depend on the Cisco products. On the other hand, Kemp Flowmon takes a vendor-agnostic approach, and we will work the same way in any environment. And funny thing, we actually come across in a number of customers who told us that the independent view was very important and was one of the reasons why they decided to choose Kemp Flowmon solution at the end, because I guess the key questions that comes to mind, and that's actually what the customer who I talked to told us, was, do you trust Cisco, looking over Cisco? So I leave that answer to you. And the 5th and final reason is the price. So right here, we can just see how the price differs at the when we look at the network detection capability license, and how the price differs when we look at the performance. And as we can see straight from the figures, on average, Cisco Stealthwatch is 3 times more expensive than the Kemp's Flowmon solution. So, but this is just comparing just one simple license on its own. So let's look at the customer example and how the whole solution would be deployed, and let's see what we find out. So imagine that you are a network security manager and you want to bridge the gap between your firewall and the endpoint protection by deploying a network detection and response solution. And the size of your network is a little over 2,000 endpoints, and you're generating roughly 50,000 flows per second. Your main objectives are to have the automated threat detection, which is integrated with your Splunk CM solution and provides you the unified view through the dashboard. So let's see what the outcome would be. If we compare the components and the price you need to achieve your goal, with Cisco, it would be the flow collection license to match your performance for the 50,000 flows per second for 400,000. Then you need the Flowmon collector with approximately, let's say, 4 terabyte capacity storage for another 120,000. You would need the software management console. That's another 60,000. And you would need to deploy, let's say, the flow sensor with 2 times 10 gigabit monitoring port, and that would be another 94,000. If we add it all together, we are $672,280. On the other hand, with Kemp Flowmon solution, your cost is significantly lower. The license for the anomaly detection for the 50,000 flows per second performance is 144,000, half of what Cisco Stealthwatch price is. The flow collector storage itself, with 3 times bigger storage capacity, 12 terabytes, is again more than half of the Cisco Stealthwatch price, mere 44,000. And lastly, the 2 times 10 gig flow sensor costs only 15,000 as opposed to Cisco's 93. So if we added all that together, you are left with bill little over 200,000. So that was the comparison price. And in the summary, if we look at the whole example and what you're getting, well, the objectives were met by both solutions. Automated threat detection, check. Unified dashboard, check by both again. Sending detected anomalies to your Splunk CM solution, that's checked by both as well. But what you're getting with Kemp Flowmon solution and what you're not getting with Cisco Stealthwatch is the NPMD features, the deep drill down capabilities for network operations. You're gaining 3 times longer historical data with the 3 times bigger storage of the flow collector, and you're getting it for less than a third of the price, which I think is pretty incredible. So
Yeah,
yeah.
this is definitely incredible. I mean, the price difference is massive, like you're saying. It's over 3 times more expensive,
Yes.
and you're getting less features.
Mm-hmm.
So,
So,
is there? I mean, what? I mean, and I'm playing devil's advocate here, but what is the benefit of spending more money for less features? Is it because you get the Cisco brand? What is the value here?
yeah, that's a good question. So generally, when we talk to our customer, and what's our experience is that usually still Cisco Stealthwatch is bundled into the big products and sometimes free of charge. And a year later, customers are really surprised how much just the support costs is going to cost them, and then they need to figure out, like, do we really need that solution? Can we find some cheaper alternative? And this is where we usually come in place, and customers are really I would say pleasantly surprised when we tell them when we get to the price, definitely, but even the value that the whole solution provides, combining the network operations capabilities with the security operations capabilities all together, bringing those two teams who can work together using one solution. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a great story. Definitely appreciate that, and it
Mhm.
makes a lot more sense now.
Yeah. So we've spent the first half of our webinar on the comparing the two solutions together and more talking about the Cisco solution. So let's now look a little bit more in detail in the Kemp's Flowmon solution. So if you look at the architecture and how it looks, we can see that in the center we have the Flowmon collector. That would be the appliance that stores the network telemetry data. And as we've already mentioned, we can get that from various of sources. It can be your routers, switches, cloud platforms, or your firewalls. It can be your existing Kemp Loadmasters. This is mainly relevant for already existing Kemp customers. So in the first half of the year, we actually introduced this first new features that binds our two product lines together, and that is the capability for the Loadmaster to generate the IP-fix network telemetry data and send it to the collector to visualize the network traffic. And if none of these options is available, or you would want to leverage the full scope of network telemetry data, and that is the extension for the application layer, you can deploy the Flowmon probe. And when you have the collector, you can you can view the data from different perspectives. So we've mainly talked about the security operations and the threat anomalies detections that you can catch with Flowmon ADS, but you can also have the network performance monitoring and traffic visibility with the basic capability of the Flowmon collector. So you can switch between those two views, or you can install a different software modules. This is the application performance monitoring, shortly APM, and you can measure the performance of your web-based applications for any user. So that gives you the insight into, is the application running smoothly or slow? If it's running slow, is the problem in the network, or is it in the application, or is it in the even application database? Next can be the full packet capture analysis. So in some cases, the NetFlow network telemetry in form of IPFix or NetFlow might not be enough detail, and you might need to see the full packets. So that's why we have the Flowmon Packet Investigator, shortly FPI, that gives you that capability and even analyzes the pcap for you as well. And for telcos customers, we can offer the detection of volumetric attacks, of volumetric DDoS attacks as well. So Flowmon anomaly detection system provides over 40 behavioral detection methods that can inspect the traffic from a different perspective. In total, these detection methods contain more than 200 individual algorithms aggregated into the 40+ detection methods based on the characteristics and categories of malicious behavior that they detect. So these detection algorithms use machine learning, heuristics, statistical, policy, and signature-based methods to provide balanced detection capabilities and cover the broadest spectrum of anomalies. In addition, we have developed our proprietary technology called behavior patterns. This enables us to create a description on the metadata on the flow level to describe and detect malicious behavior in the network. These built-in algorithms then that operate based on this principle are extended with a feed of new patterns created by Kemp Technologies through update service. The difference in detection approaches. So as we mentioned, as we said in the beginning, the network detection and response field is really growing, and there is many vendors in the market claiming that they can provide the behavior analysis of the traffic. Kemp Flowmon anomaly detection is different to many vendors that claim to have that advanced visibility and analytics detection capabilities, in a way that we don't look at statistical changes and traffic spikes. We look at every single communication as a potential threat, and we look for the smallest indicators of compromise. So another great feature capability that the anomaly detection system provides you is leveraging the MITRE attack framework. So MITRE attack framework can you have the capability with the ADS to actually view the captured anomalies and see if what kind of different tactic and techniques they relate to MITRE attack framework. So, for example, when you have a detected security event, as it is shown here, you can easily click through the MITRE attack link that is displayed in the event, and that will redirect you to the MITRE attack framework website, and you can find out more information about this specific tactic and technique that is occurring in your network. I've already talked about what consists of the full Flowmon ADS capabilities, the heuristics, machine learning, behavior patterns, and signature-based detection. Signature-based detection that we used, we don't heavily rely on it. We mainly use it to provide the additional insight to the anomalies that we catch. So we use the open source intrusion detection system Suricata that can run on the Flowmon probes and enriches the detected events with additional insight. So the threat response. So the next step when you detect the anomalies is a response. So obviously having the basic notifications and reports capabilities, that's the standard that any NDR solution needs to offer you. But what Flowmon ADS does is also the option to integrate with the CM system or a log management tool to provide you providing events over syslog in the common event format. So there is also the option to trigger the packet capture. Another option is to integrate with a third-party system like firewalls or network access controls to quarantine the host or block the activity when you need to. So there are some integrations available out of the box by us, but it's an open system. So basically through an API, anybody can create a specific script that will call the API of that network access control or firewall or whatever third-party tool there is deployed in the network to block the specific traffic or to take action based on the detection. So in summary, I always like to say you cannot manage and protect what you cannot see. So network visibility and network security comes hand in hand. And that's why I think the value that Kemp Flowmon solution provides is really beneficial for network and SecOps operators. Having the single source of visibility across the entire environment, being able to monitor the performance, see any degradation, or effectively drill down and troubleshoot to find the root cause analysis quickly and effectively, and having the automated detection capabilities. So if there is a threat actor trying to cause you some malicious activity, you can find it quickly with even before he is capable of causing any troubles. So that would be the summary, and let's look at some customer stories that I prepared for you. So in this first story, we had a customer, and the situation unfolded as this. So some user of the network was complaining to the IT administrator that the network connectivity is really slow. They cannot access any website, and they cannot connect to the internet from the meeting room. Well, luckily for us, the IT administrator had a Flowmon solution in place, and he was able to check the Flowmon anomaly detection system, and immediately it showed him detected DNS anomalies. And as we can see right away, the outcome was the use of unexpected DNS server, and based on the local IP address, we can see that it was infected notebook acting as a gateway to the internet. And we can see all the targets, all the other computers in the network who were affected by this man-in-the-middle attack. And basically, the infected device was telling these IP addresses on the right side that I am the gateway to the internet, and all the traffic was redirected through that infected device, giving the malware insight into the sensitive information like login and passwords. So as there is a quote from the customer, we have solved the incident within 1 hour thanks to the automatic detection through the through Flowmon ADS. So having that solution in place, you can immediately see the value in being able to quickly respond, finding the root cause analysis, and effectively remediate the action. If you wouldn't have any solution in place, if you wouldn't monitor the network traffic, how long do you think would it take you to manually troubleshoot and basically guessing what might be wrong? So the value is plain and simple there.
Exactly. And I just want to add on to that, Philip, for everybody, is that the problems that I have personally experienced, and I'm sure everybody that's listening to this has experienced as well, is you have this user complaining about a slow network. So now network operations, your help desk says, okay, we have a slow network. Who do we escalate this to? You have the network team, you have the application server team, you have the security team. And in the tradition, I'll say the old school world, the teams are fighting over each other not to handle the case because they don't want to spend the time dealing with it if it's not their problem. So
Yes.
it's a case of hot potato where everybody's trying to say it's not my problem, you fix it, or you prove it's my problem, and only then will I fix it. And
Yes.
the information that you can get immediately through these type of technology can tell you. In this case, we know exactly that we have an infected machine that is acting as the gateway. We know exactly where to go to. The slow network is not because that we have a lot of traffic on the network, it's because it's all being funneled through this one system. So the ability to get that immediately just completely changes, like they said in the quote, resolve in 1 hour. And to change this concept of troubleshooting without good information disappears when you start using tools like this. I love it.
Yes. Yes, exactly. And it actually eliminates the problems, because why there is the hot potato problem, as you call it, because the NetOps and SecOps teams use a number of different tools, and this kind of eliminates it, because you have one solution that both team has access to that gives them the valuable information, and it's immediately the proof. You can see both teams are looking at the same information, and immediately you know, okay, this is your responsibility to look after it and to fix it.
Awesome. I
Yes.
love these stories. Thank you.
Okay, so let's look at the customer story number 2. So I'm sure that many of you have seen in news in one form or another, some companies were affected by a ransomware attacks, and it's with the ransomware as a service that's now available, this is a really growing attacks that companies and organizations need to look out for. And this is exactly what Flowmon anomaly detections gives you the capability to protect your organization from. So this is actually a customer story from a hospital who had a number of security solution in place, but only with the Flowmon solution was actually the last one and the only one capable to catch the ransomware attack and reported the anomalous behavior that was occurring in the network. And thanks to a quick response team, and thanks to the quick response of the security team, the hospital only lose 6 X-ray screenshots before they successfully got rid of the attacker. And they know that the early detection using network traffic analysis can help contain compromised devices and threats before the severe damage is done to the system. So the value is there, having that solution and basically the capability to react of any abnormality is definitely the key, whether you can you can just rely on signature attack, but that is just not enough in today's world. And if you wouldn't have that capability, probably the only reason how you would find out is that you would receive a message similar as it is displayed below with an example of your data that is encrypted and asking for ransom, pay X amount of Bitcoins or we will never see your files again. or worse, we will release them to the public. So that's another great value, and I think one of the most useful one, that it gives you the ability to protect your environment, your organizations, and your customers, and whole your business from any threat actors that are lurking in the shadows. So I think I've talked a lot and I gave you a lot of information about our solution. So what I would really like to stress out is, maybe don't believe everything that I say, but try our solution free of charge for 30 days. Deploy it in the network as we showed. It's really easy and simple. It can be up and running within the 30 minutes, and you can get the insight into your network. You can see the top talkers, who is talking to you. You can immediately find out from our anomaly detection system if there is some infected devices that you might want to take care of, and basically see what you've been missing. So with that, I've finished my monologue, if I can say it like that. And let's see if we have some questions from the audience that I'd like to answer.
Yeah, absolutely. And Philip, first of all, thank you for all that information. Like you said, there's a lot of content there. There's a lot that we don't put out there just because we don't have enough time. So
Mhm.
definitely everybody follow up with more questions, or if you want more insights, please contact us. But we do have several questions. And let me start with this one, just came in. And I think it's interesting. Let me read this off for you. It says there are
Mhm.
several products on the market that are provided as an entire ecosystem. For example, Fidelis, it has NTA, EDR, honeypots. Can Kemp Flowmon offer anything similar to integrate with these different EDR solutions, endpoint detection and response solutions like Palo Alto, Checkpoint? So, another example, Cisco has a bunch of products, and one of their strong sides is native and seamless integration between them. So, for example, Cisco integrates with Cisco ISE security devices and maybe a firepower firewalls, Cisco firepower firewalls. So,
Mhm.
what is the story on integration? What is the benefit? What are the advantages and disadvantages of integration that Kemp Flowmon can talk about in terms of this third party thing, as one of the points that you mentioned in the five issues?
Mhm.
And what are the advantages and disadvantages of Cisco just providing everything in one
Mhm.
branded package?
Yeah, so I think I talked about it a little bit, but the great advantage is the open API. So Flowmon solution, we have a number of technology partners, and we can integrate with basically anybody through API. So it's just a matter of what kind of vendors and what kind of solutions do you have in place. Uh, I personally can see or consider the huge benefit the integration with the CM. So if I go back to the security visibility triad, you know that you need a multi-layered security approach to achieve the best security of your organization. And I would like to say that CM solutions can be like the whole umbrella on top of that. So you have your network detection and response capabilities, your endpoint detection and response solution, and all that can feed the relevant data to the CM management, where you can have the one unified view for the big security operation centers, for example.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And a couple points I would add is number
Mhm.
one is we talk at the very beginning about that security triad, where
Mhm.
NDR is only one component of the triad. And this question talks about other components of the triads in terms of the SIEM and the EDR and other
Mhm.
pieces. And it's important to have all the pieces fit together, and number two, have all the pieces. Don't just pick one of those corners of that triangle, because then you don't have this complete picture. And the other thing I always like to say is, yeah, it's great that Cisco can say we can sell you everything and everything integrates.
Mhm.
But ultimately, what I think you, the public, have found in general is that some of their products are good, some of them are great. But
Mhm.
there's also quite a few of their products which are mediocre, not so good, things that they've abandoned because it didn't sell well or didn't work right. So it's not always going to be everything is awesome because it came under this one brand name. So when you get this integrated solution from Cisco, and I'm not really trying to ding Cisco specifically, but these large multi-technology
Mhm.
companies in general, is it's going to be a mixed bag. And really and truly what you want is you want that best of breed, right? You want the best solution for the best component and make sure it can integrate. And doing the one-stop shop is not the way you're going to get that full maximum benefit from these technologies. Like we showed, there are deficiencies in terms of what the Stealthwatch technology can provide you. It doesn't do the NPMD, for example. So it
Mhm.
makes sense to do your proper research and find what makes sense in terms of the individual components, not just say, okay, this one company can provide everything.
Yes, definitely agree.
So let me see here. That was a great question because it
Uh-huh.
kept us talking for quite a while here.
Yeah.
And let's have another question here. So this question is, I think it relates to a couple things regarding to the ADS intelligence. What is the difference between ML, machine learning, and
Machine learning.
heuristics? And I'll add on to that. What is the difference between machine learning, heuristics, and signatures? Why do we talk about all of them, and how do they all help this solution?
Mhm. Yes. So the great value of the Flowmon anomaly detection system is that you've added signatures. So I'll start with that. The great value of ADS is that it's used network behavior analysis. So it learns from the behavior of the network. So that goes with what machine learning is. The Flowmon ADS actually can I like to say it creates profile of every user in the network and how each devices learns and behave, and then can basically provide you and alert if there is some suspicious behavior or different from how they were usually behaving. For example, we actually had a customer case where there was a security event triggered alerted by Flowmon ADS because an employee was uploading a huge amount of data to the public cloud. And after a detailed little investigations, we found out that this employee was he handed his termination notice and was trying to back up company data that he might use later in the future. So this can be, for example, like a change in the long-term behavior that we can provide the alert on. On the other hand, the heuristics, it's more like it's more like learning from what different protocols look like or how they typically behave and how much data they usually how big they are, how much data they transfer. And because we know what a typical behavior in the network looks like, how typical protocols operate, we can create our own algorithms that can basically provide an alert if they start to work a little differently. If, for example, if through an ICM protocol, you that usually only have a couple of kilobytes, and you will try to transfer some payloads over that protocol, so suddenly it has an abnormal amount of or it has a bigger size or transferring more data than it usually does. So that can be also the difference. So that's the whole ADS intelligence. It's like you can take a number of approaches, and the key information is that the number of detection methods that we combine together using those 200 plus algorithms that we create, that we learn from what a typical behavior in the network looks like and what the abnormal behavior in the network looks like. All this added together is what will give you the early detection capabilities that you need and want to be able to catch the threat actor.
Exactly, and I'd like to add on a couple examples. Like for example, I've learned over time that the average user's computer, your laptop, your desktop, whatever computer you're using, over the course of a day in a work life, your computer will probably touch anywhere, say, 3 dozen different endpoints. About 3 dozen endpoints over the course of life of because you're constantly touching similar things. You're constantly touching certain websites, your email server, other things, other applications. Excuse me. And that's it. So so if your computer starts probing the network because it's infected with some malware and it's trying to infect other machines, it's going to start touching hundreds of devices. That's an anomaly. That's what something that is out of place, and that's something that you can then define within the heuristics to say this is something that's abnormal. And there's other cases where, for using my case of things don't constantly run financial reports sometimes infrequently, every quarter, for example.
Mhm.
So the system will learn, and this is the machine learning, where it will learn what devices are touching the finance server because it's a critical server. It has sensitive data, and we want to be careful on who accesses the finance server. And then after a couple months, may say, for example, there's a new device that has never touched the finance server starts touching it.
Mhm.
Is that a problem? That's the machine learning because it says I've learned what is normal behavior for what accesses the server now, and now there's something different. Is it new? Is this a hacker trying to access my financial information and to extract or to do something? So these are the types of things that we can do with this ADS solution, and the technologies are really cool in terms of how it tracks, monitors, creates these baselines and everything else. And that comes to another question that I have here is when we talk about network assessments and trials and things, is 30 days or a week or 2 weeks, is that long enough for us to properly get enough of a baseline for us to be able to say, yes, these are anomalies, those aren't anomalies? Is there a benefit for doing these assessments, and why should I do it or not do it?
Mhm. Yes, there is definitely the benefit, and you should do it. So the way how Flowmon ADS works and the number of detection capabilities it has, the minute you install and deploy the solution, it immediately starts detecting, and it needs some basic configuration. But I would say more than half of the detection capabilities are already working when it's deployed. So you might need to tweak a couple of things specific to your environment, but the value is right there from the first moment the solution is spun up.
So that's pretty cool. So what you're saying is that when, let's say I'm a customer and I ask for a network assessment and you have your team come in, install the devices and set it up and start it running, there's already some pre-configured assumptions and information configured for the settings so that I'm going to get valuable information immediately. Just like, for example, I said earlier, the average device touches 3 dozen different
Mhm.
endpoints over the course of a day. So that's type of information that we're assuming is correct and we're inputting, and obviously lots of other information about how the traffic flows on the network. And
Mhm.
that's going to be pre-configured into the system so I get value immediately. I don't have to wait a month or even 6 months for me to get valuable data from the system. I can get it from day one, is what you're saying here. Is that
Exactly.
correct?
Exactly. Exactly.
That's awesome. So we're
Mhm.
running out of time here. I greatly appreciate you taking the time, Philip, to do this presentation and share
Mhm.
all this valuable knowledge that you have. Everybody on this listening to this presentation live, please follow up with us with any questions. If you're on demand, please follow up with any questions that you have. Contact us. You can go to kemptechnologies.com and you can learn more about this. You can contact us at info or sales at kemp.ax email. And again, please follow us on LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, our social media. We have lots of cool presentations and informative videos available on our channels. And we look forward to seeing you on the next presentation. Thank you very much, and everybody have a great day.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.